Teachers at the Community College of Qatar recently asked me a question about classroom management. How do we stop students from using their cell phones in class? Well, I wrote bad behavior in the title because it's short and it fits in. But a better way to look at it is behavior that blocks or gets in the way of learning. Let me give you an analogy from the world of medicine. People take Prilosec for heartburn. It lowers the acid in one's stomach, but it can also lower the absorption of other important drugs, for example, thyroid medication like Synthroid. So we don't want our students engaging in behaviors that lower the absorption of what they should be getting in class. Cell phone use is the big one, but there may be others that you think have a negative effect on your students' learning. The first thing we need to do is reflect on the causes. Is there anything in our teaching that might be leading to the problem? For example, is there too much downtime while we wait for the last student to finish an exercise? That means fast finishers will want to check their phones. Secondly, it's a good idea to explain the problem to the students. When you're on your phone, you're missing out. We think we can do two things at the same time, but research shows multitasking is not efficient. And you're also disturbing others. This may be a good time to talk about cell phone use in general and addiction. And you might also want to suggest some technological solutions, such as an away message saying, "I'm in class now," or settings that allow certain numbers through, like one's kid's school, but not others. And we need to explain our policy. It may be zero tolerance. It may be milder. You decide what's important to you and what your limits are, as well as what your students' needs are. And make sure you can be consistent. We also have to explain the procedures. For example, if you need to take an emergency call, slip quietly out of the room. I think it's a good idea to have a reminder at the start of each class. Your opening slide can include, "Take a moment to silence your phones and put them away." Finally, we need to have consequences. I think one big reason why we have classroom management failures is that consequences are tough. They're hard to decide on and hard to enforce. So we'll talk a little bit more about them. In terms of mobile phone use in class, consequences might be the following. We give a stern look, or we say, "Put the phone away." But let's compare it to some other undesirable behaviors. We know we should get regular exercise, or eat plenty of vegetables, or floss our teeth. If those behaviors are hard for us, will it help to have someone glare at us when we eat a big dessert, or tell us, "You should floss more often," or remind us that we paid for a gym membership we're not using? Probably not. It's hard to change ingrained behaviors. So let's look at some ways we can help students change their behavior beyond the endless reminders. This technique recognizes that cell phone use is a kind of addiction. And just as a smoker might struggle to give up cold turkey completely all at once, our phone users might really find it impossible to go 2 hours without checking their phone. So, can we start them with a shorter amount of time, say 10 minutes? And then tomorrow they might build up to 15, and by the second week of class they're at 30 minutes? A key to any good classroom management is that when you see a problem, don't ignore it. Some possible ways to let students know that we see them violating our classroom code would be check their names on a class list, write their name on the board and add checks, Or give everyone a green card at the start of class and exchange it for a yellow or a red card if you see them using their phone. At the end of class, when students are leaving, they return their card to the teacher. These kinds of tactics work in conjunction with a consequence, such as a participation or attendance grade. For example, a student who leaves class with a red card is counted absent, or a student with 3 check marks gets 0 participation points for the day. Perhaps the consequence might be something more lighthearted. In the old days, misbehaving students had to wear a dunce cap. In your class, you might choose a plush rat or a rubber chicken, and the offending student has to sit with it on his or her desk. Here's another variation. Students get a certain number of free passes or payment options each day or week or term. If you see them on the phone, demand payment. And if they've run out and can't pay, they give you their phone. Speaking of which, if you collect phones for any reason, maybe at the beginning of every class or as part of a consequence, it's good to think through the location so it doesn't stress students out. Phones on a desk in the middle of the room might be the easiest. And I like this idea of a poly envelope with a loud Velcro sealer. Everyone puts their phone in an envelope at the beginning of class, or if they've used their phone at the wrong time. Now, if they want to use the phone, when they open the envelope, the Velcro makes a loud noise. One more note about behavior modification. We often need variety. A system that works for a week or 2 may begin to fade in its effectiveness. So you might try rubber chicken for a week, and the next week bring out your payment chips, and the next week try something else. Let me end with some practical notes. I like non-intrusive ways of reminding students of a policy. I don't want to have to stop what I'm saying and talk to a student. I might have a poster on the wall which I can point to, or a card in my pocket which I can take out and show to a student while I keep talking to the class. Whatever you choose, it has to be practical for you and your class. For example, the green, yellow, red card system works if you often walk around the class, if you have pockets in which you can keep a few colored cards, and if you don't mind standing at the door as students leave the room so you can collect their cards. And you also have to remember who returned the yellow or red card so you can adjust their daily score, or whatever you've decided. If that's not practical for you, the system won't work. For another example, if you choose plush rat sitting on a student's desk as a consequence, do it only if it's a humorous sign of mild shame that will motivate students, and don't use it if it will just become another distraction. You might know right now which of my suggestions are the most practical for your class, and if not, it's okay to experiment. Changing student behavior works well when we teachers have a good system. It works even better when there's good class community and when everyone is cheering each other on and rooting for all to succeed. Maybe you have rewards and consequences for the whole class, so classmates encourage each other to put away phones. Finally, let's remember that none of these suggestions are magic wands, and there may be a point where we have to let it go. I hope you can apply what I've said about phone use to other management issues, and let me know what works for you.